And we're back with another episode of If Our Kids Ask. My name's Derek. I'm her big brother.
I'm Amy. I'm the little sister.
And we thought we'd document a little bit of our perspective, stories, and answers in case our kids one day ask questions that we're not around to answer for them. We will be able to speak to them from the past about what we think, our advice, our counsel, and be able to help them, guide them. And we'll even do a little bit of a story time, sharing a story or parable toward the end of the podcast about, and then wrapping it up with a life lesson as well. Okay. In this episode, what we had been doing is we've been leveraging ChatGPT to give us questions to ask and answer one another. But today we actually switched it up a little bit. We said we're going to get a little more human, and we'll pick the questions for one another without the other person knowing what the questions were. Do you want to go first, or would you like me to go first?
Either way.
All right, go ahead. You go first, and I will get mine back up because I have switched over.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you, what part of being a new dad has been the most humbling?
First answer is it's a contrast of knowing parents or people who've wanted to be parents and they're not able to be parents. And I think there's people that I know that fertility has been a very real challenge, and as many times of prayer or fasting or medical procedures, like nothing has worked for them. So there is like a real suffering that they're going through. There's a real suffering that, have you ever heard of this idea that it's like an interesting kind of way to do a banquet? I've seen people do banquets to raise money where they have different people have their plates of food that represent different countries of the world of what a meal looks like for them. You heard of this idea? Mm-hmm. So some people will have like 12 grains of rice as their meal, and some people will have steak and potatoes and vegetables. So it's like I don't know, I've never done that, but it's like, how would you feel if you had the steak, the potatoes, the vegetables, and then people around you were just having rice? So there's an element that's humbling for me to even just being a dad, knowing that there are people who wish they could be and haven't been able to, or haven't, and maybe never will be able to. So that's a humbling thing for me as maybe a more of a macro answer.
Anything more specific?
Let's see. Humbling, I think.
Like you expected you were going to be better at like something and it's actually not that easy.
It is it
is easy. I don't know what y'all are complaining about.
how worn out you feel is real. Like waking up every 2 hours, especially you when you're waking up to feed every so often. And then I'll tease, even me teasing you about yawning during the podcast, which again, I still think it's faux pas. I still think it shouldn't be done. Yeah. But the idea then like relating on this side of being a dad, going, oh, that makes more sense now. And especially when you're being interrupted from your sleep, you don't get like on this side of it, hearing you say, hey, I don't remember the last time I got 6 straight hours of sleep. I'm like, oh, like what? Like how? And the idea that Kalel didn't breastfeed or didn't bottle feed.
Yeah, at all.
Which is like, man, every single time he's eating was dependent on you. Yeah. It was like a crazy idea. So again, that I think changing diapers, changing poop diapers, like, and then having to make a decision on like what to do in the sense of if you have a blowout and it's on the clothes. Let's say let's say he's wearing a onesie and it gets on the clothes, and then do you just put the whole baby in a bath immediately, or like But like, if you can't take the onesie off of him, like where if there's a mess on, let's say the rim of the leg of the onesie, like
Yeah.
you don't want it to come up over his head. You don't want poop on his head, on
Yeah.
his face. So one humbling thing that happened, I said, I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but I'm gonna get some scissors and cut it off and throw it away.
That's okay. That's good.
So I was like, what would another parent do in this situation? I suppose maybe they would just bathe. I mean, I don't know. Like, okay, it's kind of interesting because there's a parallel between washing the way somebody washes dishes and the way maybe some of this is done. Like the way I'll wash dishes is almost like I have, even though I use the dishwasher too, but it's like you almost have a clean dish that goes into the clean water and then goes into the dishwasher. So it's almost like my dirty water is never really even dirty because I try to clean the dish before it goes in there.
Yeah.
So it's like one sink has the dish where you
rinse them.
where you rinse them and scrub anything off. Then it goes into the water and then it goes into the dishwasher. Yeah. So I'm like, there's the idea of not wanting to even get his bath dirty, you know what I'm saying, with his own stuff. So it's like, okay, I want to clean him before he goes over there. Anyway, I thought that was humbling of going, how do parents make the decision of like, whatever, like,
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the first parent who's cut the thing, but that did seem like overly privileged. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, don't need this outfit anymore. Cut it off.
Yeah.
But yeah. Is that a good enough answer? Because I guess my
Yeah.
first one wasn't good enough. Is that Pacific enough, or do you want something? Are you fishing for something more?
No, I was looking for something more funny.
Yeah.
Not all sad. but
Yeah. No, I suppose I was telling you the question, and then I'll ask you another question. Well, what about you? What was the most humbling part for you?
ooh, I do feel like sometimes, so like I probably in Khalil's whole life, maybe 4 or 5 times,
Keep going. Sorry.
maybe 4 or 5 times in all of Khalil's life, like every once in a while, he will really, really like get on my nerves. Like I have to take a deep breath and I have to walk away. Because he'll be like screaming or crying and I'm like doing everything that I can to like make him try to feel better. And it's like everything that I do is not working. And I feel like sometimes, especially as his mom, like I feel like, oh, every single time like he's crying, I can always be the one to soothe him. But sometimes even, my best efforts is not good enough. So that was humbling for me, like, oh, like even every once in a while, I'm not going to be perfect mom, gets it right every time, can calm myself down and calm the baby down. Like, no, sometimes I'm going to have to take a deep breath, walk away from screaming child, calm myself down, and then, try again. But yeah, I immediately, especially because Khalil's breastfed, like I'm always like, oh, he just give him Chi-Chi, he's okay. But, sometimes he's not okay, even then.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, like only maybe four times in his whole life.
Let me make one adjustment real quick.
Never. So, I've been obsessed with these peanuts, right? Have you ever tried them?
I don't know if I have or have not.
So they're kind of sweet. And if anybody has not tried them, I don't know if they have them outside of Texas because recently, we drove to Alabama. And I was looking for them over there in Alabama and then in Louisiana, and they didn't have them. So if you have not tried these spicy peanuts,
They're our new sponsor.
they're not our sponsor. They're delicious, though.
Okay. So I feel like you packaged that, and so one thing that I've watched our podcast back a couple of times, different episodes, and I was like, sometimes I'm inside of an episode, and my radar goes off when somebody's packaging something better than what it really is, to kind of what you were saying. Like when somebody uses, so maybe this is me getting triggered, which is like an easy thing to do. Okay, when somebody contrasts, I know I'm not perfect. Like, okay, so yeah, I get triggered by the idea.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But, so somebody's saying I'm not always patient. We know that somebody's not always patient. We know you don't always, but I think it's more of like, I think it's a specific time. It's, I found myself yelling. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's more of that is what we would be looking for from you, as opposed to, you packaged it prettier and more general than.
Sometimes I will hold him like this, like.
Okay. You're crazy.
This is a moment when anybody else would shake you.
but I'm such a good person, so I'm gonna pat myself on the back for not
shaking you, and I'm gonna set you down, and I'm gonna walk away. Not that I'm not leaving him screaming and crying.
Yeah.
I still need to take a deep breath.
See, there you go. Look at you. You penetrated and went deeper into your evil.
When he's like this, when he's arching his back and he's screaming, and I'm just holding him, and I'm like this.
Much better. I like that.
Like you could.
I don't like that, but I like that.
You could flip out of my arms right now, and I don't have to catch you, but I will.
And as they get bigger, and as of course you're smaller,
yeah.
Like, isn't that? I mean, how heavy is Kalo now?
Probably 20-something pounds.
I can't even imagine your body carrying a 20-pound kid around.
It's a lot, especially like pregnant. Like I'm so tired all the time.
And he's stronger, so like it's such a. I know what I'm just holding cords in with one hand or whatever, and I'm like, you realize how I'm I'm kind of pinning him, not in a bad way, but like pinning him so that he can't get out. But you just know like there's certain ways you hold a baby, a newborn, that you're not going to be able to hold a 6-month and a 1-year-old. And it's interesting to think about. Even you mentioned like them arching the back and throwing their head back and all these things where there's so much weight in their head where they can throw themselves somewhere,
Yeah, and it's like he does it all, like, if he's mad about something, he's like throwing himself around, and I'm like, little boy.
Right. And I imagine whether
sometimes I do just have to, he's heavy, so sometimes I'll just have to lay him on the ground, and then he's on the ground, and then he looks like so betrayed. like, did you just set me down after I wanted to freak out in your arms?
Well, I've also thought about like whether it's in a daycare or whether it's with siblings or different cousins or whatever, where you see the freak out moment, and then one of the things they do is they throw themselves back, and it's like so it's kind of interesting for me, my brain to think about this, like this child may have never thrown themselves back in a unsafe place or with a hard floor behind them, and the first time they try to think, let's say they've done it before on the bed, but then the first time they do it on the hard floor, it's going to be a rude awakening. And then it's like do you do the parent thing of, do they get the double negative? They get the negative of like just hitting their head, and then do you scold them and say, yeah, you did that to yourself?
That's why, I do. That's why I feel bad. Like I'll lay him on the ground because he's throwing a fit. And then after he's on the ground, he's kind of like, oh man, this is uncomfortable. So then he's crying because of that. So then I pick him up and I'm like, you need to not. I try to explain to him, and it's crazy. I feel like he's getting to a point where he's really understanding things now. So like he's able to say more words like in association to like things like, he says awa. He can sign the more food now. So it's like there's different things that he's doing now that it's like, wow, like so he really understands. And like if he's like about to put something in his mouth, I'll say, don't put that in your mouth, and then he's like, oh, like I was gonna give you this dirty penny I found on the ground. I wasn't gonna put it in my mouth.
Do you think how many sign language words would you say he knows, or how many would you say? Is there a certain amount where a parent should?
So they say by 16 months, your child should know 16 gestures. So like, Kalel probably, I don't know if he's exactly at 16, but I
Yeah.
consider like anything like, blowing a kiss, that's a gesture that he associates with like saying goodbye. But it's not like a sign language gesture. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Or like if he wants something, he'll go like this, or he'll like slap down like, hey, like I want this. So I think those are also gestures, but they're not necessarily like specific to actual words in sign language.
Was he walking?
Yeah, he's walking.
When did he start?
Actually, about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, he didn't sleep all night. Like he was up. And the next day he woke up and he could walk.
What's his favorite food?
His favorite food? Oh. Probably cookies.
What kind?
Chocolate chip cookies. But he likes them soft. I mean, he'll eat them hard.
Let me tell you my insidious reason for asking. Okay, so have you seen those videos where they line up the family members and then they try to get the kid to come to them because they're barely learning to walk? And I was like, how can I give myself an advantage in this make believe or in this hypothetical situation? I was like, cookie.
Or have you seen those plush boobies?
I don't think I have, but I guess I can imagine what you're talking about.
Yeah, so they're like squishies. They give them out like at different mom stuff. Like I've seen them like at the hospitals, like in the mom areas of the hospitals. But yeah, maybe not. Kalal is so funny.
Yeah, are you gonna do that? We should do it as an intro video of Kalel, and we line up.
All of us.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. No, it would be fun. I think we should. But yes, going back to throwing fits.
Yes.
And you think they're kind of little, right? Like, oh man, he's kind of little. Why is he throwing a fit?
Well, somebody was talking about how men lose testosterone once they have a baby, and again, part of me was like, oh, okay, what's the data on that, whatever. But let's say it is true, and I was like, why would it be true? And they were talking about like they were contrasting somebody with roid rage, like ultimately angry
because of steroids,
because of all the testosterone, and the opposite of having less testosterone, you're more calm, more patient, more able to deal with their screaming or their fits or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's interesting because, like, again, when they're crying or they're interrupting so much of your sleep and you're serving them over and over again and you're changing diapers and then there's, all these things are happening. Like, the human element is to go, like, I could see, again, when you get out of yourself, kind of how you said, I could see how a worse person would do something stupid right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes.
All right, my question for you. Okay, this is a lot of mine are hypotheticals I've kind of seen. The hypothetical is you and Jeremy are on vacation, and you're like, you know what? We're going to trust Kalel to stay with your mom and dad. And so it's a 7-day vacation. You're going to Cancun, Mexico.
So, like, how old is he? How old are the children?
He's 1.5.
He's his age, right? Almost, yeah. A little older than he is right now. Yeah.
Okay, y'all go, and Kalel's acting really bad, and then he gets spanked on day 4 while you're on vacation.
Oh.
And then the spanker, but the spanker, let's say the spanker is either your mom or your dad in the hypothetical, but they didn't report back that they spanked him. Another person who was told about the event told you. What's your response?
Oh gosh. That's a tough one. It depends on like what he was doing. Was what he was doing like life or death? He almost died.
Okay, let's paint the picture. What situation would you be like, okay? What situation would you be like, hold on, I feel really uncomfortable. Now you're like, oh no, that's completely unacceptable, right? There's three different, let's paint three different pictures. The life or death, yes, he ran into the street multiple times and he was spanked.
Okay. Then it's kind of like, oh, all right, I understand. But first of all, why didn't y'all get him out of there? How come he had the chance to do it again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the middle.
At that point in time, it's like, okay, I understand why. 2, you should have got him out of there. 3,
Got him out of there. What do you mean?
like taking him away from the easily accessible street.
Yeah, it wasn't 3 times in a row in the same moment. It was 3 separate times after he'd been told. So, all right. So then, do you have a conversation with the person? What's the?
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely bring it up. I'm gonna say,
Do you fly back because you're on day 4? You have 3 more days in Cancun.
No, I do not fly back.
Okay. Okay. Then what's the middle situation where it's like uncomfortable, maybe not entirely unacceptable, but still maybe he bit 3 other kids. This is a good one. I feel like I'm pretty good about my hypothetical right now.
He bit 3 other kids. Oh, yeah, definitely he needs to be taken away. There's other ways to discipline children. But yeah, I guess especially like, mom's older. I guess my dad's not that old, but he's more traditional too. I feel like they're kind of like more along the lines of, I don't think mom's really like a big spanker.
I'm about to ask you that. Do you, percentage-wise, your spanking experience as far as being a kid, was it like 90-10 spanked by your dad, or do you feel like were you spanked at all? Do you have memories of being spanked at all? Or
very,
disciplined?
very, very few times, and it's probably about. And I don't know if it's considered spanking. And I was much older than a child. If I do think about being spanked, well, not even spanked, but like whacked. I don't know what the right word is. Just quick, thunk.
By who?
I've been whacked a few times by mom. At least 3. At least 3 times.
Okay.
But yeah. But she says that is justified because I was pissing her off.
Okay.
Which I'm sure it was. I was like, what, 15? So at this point, I'm already older.
Yeah. Okay. Back to the other
scenario.
Okay, no, so then. Okay, so you have a few moments of discipline.
Yeah.
Okay, other ways of discipline. So are you a non-spanker? Do you think you're going to be a non-spanker?
I don't really want to be a spanker, but I'm not going to be like report Jeremy to child services if he does a little spanking. But I have heard that like the comfort after the fact is a big deal.
Yeah. Being bipped. Tell us more, B-Rye.
Brian said, my mom called it getting bipped. But yeah, so I think it's like super important about how like what you do immediately after. I think like spanking your child when they're doing something bad and then immediately after, like the comfort, like comforting them and letting them know, I think it's that cute communication part, like spanking them, then letting them know like, hey, I really didn't want to have to do that, but I had to because of whatever the situation is, because you really can't be biting other people, that's acceptable because you could potentially really be hurting someone else, or, running in the street is not good, that can hurt you, get you killed, things like that. I think it's super important to explain those things. But let's say something else like super unwarranted need for spanking? Like, you don't want to eat your food.
Throwing his fork at dinner time. He did it 7 times.
Onto the floor or like at someone?
At people. It hasn't been hitting them, but it's been thrown at.
A spanking for that? I don't know. I think we would just take the fork away. Yeah, I would be like upset. I don't think any of these would warrant me coming home though.
Right. And the reason I picked this scenario is because one, it's extreme, but then two, you also think through, it exposes kind of your thoughts on spanking and discipline.
I also wouldn't leave the country.
Well, you probably can't.
With my son being so young. Either one.
Can you leave the country?
No. Not yet. Anyways, oh my gosh, so I was pulled over the other day. Did I tell you? I was pulled over the other day, and I think completely unjustified. Completely. And I'm going to say this only because I don't think I did anything wrong at all. So my
fits your personality.
My cruise control was on, the speed limit was 75. My cruise control was on 75. So I was going exactly 75 miles an hour. And if anything, I was going slower because I was like hitting the brakes every once in a while and then resetting the cruise control. I moved over, like I put my blinker on or something, or I don't even think I moved. I think I was holding still the whole time. And the cop, this cop was pulling up next to me over and over again. And I was like, okay, whatever. But I think when they were pulling up, it's mom's truck. So like the rear view mirror has a light that blinks when somebody's next to you.
Yeah.
So I think they thought I was putting my blinker on and I wasn't putting my blinker on. So they let me know that I was putting my incorrect blinker on. So that's what they pulled me over for, because I didn't put my blinker on correctly. So they pulled me over, and it was me, Mom, and Kalel in the back. And
you were driving?
Yeah, I was driving.
Yeah. Wait, so you still think this is unjustified? But I'll save my opinion toward the end. But you think this is unjustified?
And let me tell you why I think it was unjustified. Okay, so they pulled me over because they said I had the wrong blinker on, which I don't even think I had my blinker on because I was staying put the whole time.
Blue lives matter.
But they're pulling up next to me, flashing, pulling up next to me, and the thing's flashing because, they think I have my blinker on, but I don't. So they pulled me over, right? So I pulled over, and they're asking us questions, something, and I'm like, all right, whatever. Then they asked me to get out of the car. So keep in mind, it's like 2:00. It's like almost, I guess it's afternoon. Afternoon, 12:00, Yeah, whatever. Anyways, so I get out of the vehicle. They start asking all kinds of questions. Where are you going? How long were you there? Where did you travel to? We went to go pick up a calf, the boy calf for my dad for the cows for his birthday. So we're explaining that, right? I'm explaining that. They're talking to Mom. Mom's explaining that. They're asking us if we live on land. And tell me why I'm like, no, we don't live on land. We live in a house. And they're like, then where are you going to put the cow? so then I was like, what? Like, I don't know. They have another property to put that on, So they're asking us so many questions, right? So then 2 more cops pulled up. So
let's go.
2 more cops pulled up, and they're asking us like all kinds of questions. They're like, oh, and then who all went over there? Who did you stay with? How long did you stay? Did you stay anywhere on the way? So I'm explaining like, yes, we did all that. And then, I have a speeding ticket here in Texas that I have a warrant out for my arrest for. So I'm like, a piece of me wanted to be like, I'm not going to answer your questions anyways, because you're going to take me to jail anyways. Which a piece of me was like, just don't say anything. Like, they're going to take you to jail anyways, and you're just going to dig yourself deeper. Like, just stop talking. So then I'm standing out there this whole time, and then they're like, do we have permission to search the vehicle and all its contents? I was like, what? They're like, do you know why we're doing all this? I was like, because just in case I'm possibly smuggling drugs or being sex trafficked or something. I don't know. And then he's like, correct. And I was like, okay, well, he's like, you seemed very nervous, so we pulled you over. I was like, because you're cops. I was like, because one, I have a warrant for speeding. Two,
you have a warrant in how many states?
and then they're asking, like, have you ever been in trouble? Like, da 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 da. And I'm like, yes. They're like, what have you been arrested for? I was like, just for whatever. And then they're asking mom, like, have you ever been arrested? And mom's like, no. They're like, come on, you can tell us. And mom's like, I've never been arrested before. They're like, ma'am, it's all right. I'm on your side. And she's like, I've never been to jail. So I'm like, I'm freaking out. And then we're sitting there. So we had left like an hour before my dad, or we had left at the same time, but he got stuck in traffic, like a traffic bubble that we went around because I had the navigation on. So then he was so like 45 minutes behind us, and then I saw him pass by. And the officer's talking to me, and I went like this, and then I was like, look at all the cars now, because I was like, I don't want anybody to pull my dad over now. So then I'm like, no sudden movements. So then, they're asking us all these questions, and
what state is this? Texas?
Yeah, we're
you're going over there.
Going over?
To Alabama.
No, we're on the way back.
Oh, but you're in Texas.
Yeah, but we're in Texas.
Okay.
So we're like on the home stretch, 30 minutes from the house.
Oh.
Or maybe, an hour,
Okay,
not very far.
Right.
So we're an hour from where we need to be. And I'm like, and I had someplace to be. We had an event that we had to be at, and we were already going to get there 30 minutes late. And then they kept us for 45 minutes. So then I was like, OMG. Well, the baby's there, and he's frustrated, all these things. So then they're like, and then they called another cop to bring the dog, and then they go and they smell the whole truck, and they do all the things, and then they're like, how long have you been driving? And I was like, 5 years. And they're like, oh, then why did you put the wrong blinker on? And I was like, I don't think I did, but but whatever. I was like, okay. They're like, like which way to put the blinker on, whatever. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I guess y'all can teach me if you need to. Let me know. And then I called Jeremy, right? So in the process of all of this, I called Jeremy and I said, they're about to take me away. And I showed him all the police sirens in the back. And then Jeremy was probably like, they probably think that you have drugs strapped to your belly and that's not real belly.
So your conclusion
on the whole thing was eventually then I got back in the car. They didn't even give me a ticket. They just gave me a warning.
Yeah.
And they let me go.
See?
After almost an hour of standing outside in the sun.
Power to the blue. See, they're protecting our people. Yeah.
Anyway, so then we saw a couple of other, we saw quite a few people pulled over. So then I was like, maybe they got like a tip that someone was driving with drugs or something like that on this highway. So that's why they pulled us over, and they were like giving us the third degree.
Wait, so you thought there was something suspect about, because as a 39-year-old, I think it's weird how you've seen enough movies, enough shows, heard enough stories where like they're so close to catching the bad guy, right? Like they're so close to stopping the trafficking. Like they search almost every compartment, or they ask almost every question, and they do all these things, but then they actually stop the right one, right? Like there's stories of like again, people that have been kidnapped and stored in the back room, and the cops show up at the house and they knock on the door, they ask a few questions, and then they leave. But then the kids were just in the back. If they would have just like pressed a little bit further, held on a little bit longer, actually did more investigation, then like they could have rescued somebody. But no, but even movies where somebody's being held hostage and they're driving, they're trying to send signals to the cops about like something's not right here.
Yeah.
So that to me, like whether it's the stories that have gone viral maybe more recently, or at least it went viral again. You know, we're in an interesting age where now we're having like things go viral like 5 years ago and then it goes re-viral again. But like one of them, which was when the person called to order pizza to 911. Hey, you know, I'm calling to order pizza. And then the operator's like, oh, no, this is 911. He said, and then she's like, no, I know, but I want to order the pizza. And then the operator gets it and goes, okay, now I see and I get it, what you're doing. So the operator was intuitive enough to know the person cannot say, I'm calling 911, but I have to do this very, very in an indirect way. Or like there's I think a movie that came out, or a show came out, Blink Twice, which is like blink twice if you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So like let's say mom, who they just know as a lady in the back, has your child hostage in the back and has you driving, then they do want to separate you and question her separately. So anyway, I think when you've seen enough movies and enough shows and enough stories, then you go, let's go blue.
Yeah. I wasn't too pressed about it. I was a little because I was running late, but I did feel like that was a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
Spanking a kid.
Your thoughts, your ideas.
On vacation, somebody else spanks my kid. Do I return? Is there justified reasons for spanking? I think there are. Now, would I have preferred to see the video of it? Like, what if it was too hard? Or like, again, like the idea of spanking. I know you were joking around when you said mom told you you were pissing her off or whatever.
Yeah.
That made her spank you. Like, one thing, I don't want my kid to be spanked while somebody else is pissed off or ticked off or whatever. Like I don't want my kid spanked under those conditions.
I don't want you to angry spank them.
Right. So yeah, running to me, yeah, running in front of the cars, justified. You know, hey, feel the pain. Don't kill. You know, don't die. Then the other one was biting the kids. Also, think I'm okay with that. Also want to record it. Want to be able to see how intense it was. And also, anybody who spanks my kid, I want to be able to come back and spank them as well. As hard as they spank my kid. No, just kidding. Can you imagine? Yeah. So, throwing the knives, yeah, probably unnecessary. And be like, hey, let me prohibit. This person may have lost spanking privilege for the rest of their lives. So if you're not the spanker, then you also would not be empowering anybody else.
Yeah, probably not.
And then how are you going to feel if Kalel is a spanker?
Like
for your
dad.
grandkids.
I'm going to be like, I never spanked you.
I knew you. You're not going to be like, Kalel, you can do what you choose to do and what you want.
No. I'm going to say, if you're going to do it to him, you got to do it to me.
Oh my God. He's like, okay. Around her face. All right. Your question.
So, has having a child brought you and your wife closer, or, you know, like that? Has it brought y'all closer or brought up things that you didn't expect in your marriage?
Good question. Do you think this is controversial at all? What if it really has ripped us apart? We're like sleeping in separate rooms and I haven't talked to her over the last 2 weeks. And you guys been on a podcast and I'm like trying to be Christian, like can't lie. And I'm like stuck. And I'm like,
Exposed.
Closer. I like to define concepts. So if we define closer as, hey, we're engaging and interacting and team working, then I'd say yes, because we have a common mission as far as like raising up
A child.
Horzen, helping him, feeding him. We're like giving each other reports of like, hey, like because I'm doing the graveyard shift from like 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. where she's sleeping. I'm sleeping like 4 a.m. to 12 p.m. So those 8 hours that we're both not around our son, we don't know what happened. So then we're talking about, hey, how it went and different things like that. So that's closer, but it's not like, oh yeah, we've gone on, great 4 romantic dates, and now we're more affectionate than we've ever been, and she's recovering from a C-section. It's like again. So I'm big on defining a word and then answering the question. So if I defined it by interacting and engaging more on a common mission, I would say for sure. I'd say there's certain. Is our date frequency as great as it's ever been? No, because we're like taking care of a kid, and then like you're like tired in different ways, and it's like, okay, we want to go out and do something. It's like, do you want to go to the park? Okay, let's go, and we'll get out of this for a little bit, and then we get to the park, and we're like, actually, let's just sit in the car.
Yeah.
But I think again, appreciation for her commitment and for her diligence. I think I'm a believer that anybody's skill or strength can become a weakness for them. My wife's one of her greatest strengths and skills is observation. Sometimes it's in a married setting, sometimes it's annoying. As a mom, it's like an incredible superpower where it's like she sees if his bottom is more red than usual or if something's different. Her observation is super appreciated as a mom. I think I would say more so than as a wife. It's like stop using your superpower on me, like or whatever. But as a mom, you're like, man, I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. Any thoughts, any responses to what I said?
I think y'all are making it a real team effort. Like 8 hours, 8 whole hours. So he is not strictly breastfed. No,
Not strictly
bottle.
breastfed, right? Absolutely. It's kind of interesting. So the word supplement, where I most associated is with supplements to your diet. So like you have your main things you're hopefully eating, whatever, your protein or your carbs, but you supplement with vitamins, things that you're not getting ordinarily. So if we said the main thing is whatever, him on formula, then it sounds weird to say he's supplementing breast milk, but I think that's probably more of the percentage right now.
Yeah. I think that's great to be able to do that.
And then so he's he takes the bottle really easily.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting? I was talking to ChatGPT about the idea. So naturally, you're familiar with milk banks. Milk banks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know there's a whole world. There's a whole world like you just don't know that exists of people who donate milk and then how it's prioritized.
It's funny. Krish and I were just talking about that yesterday. I was like, have you ever thought about donating milk? And she was like, yeah, like if, I got to where my supply was up. And I was like, yeah, I thought about it too. I was like, especially now that I need to start pumping milk so that Kalel and new baby can have enough milk so that I can take a break,
Yeah.
Because I think that's where like I ran into problems with Kalel was that like I didn't have enough milk so that even if he did take a bottle, he wanted more. I don't know.
Oh, so you think if you might have...
If I had like started really, and especially it was hard because having to like clean all of the pump stuff all the time, I didn't like having to do that. And I think I was and because at the very beginning I wasn't like staying with mom, it was just Jeremy and I, and like I feel like sometimes when you want things clean a certain way, if somebody doesn't do it the way you want it, like you don't feel like they're as clean, so you still wanted to do it yourself. So I think I felt like that with like Jeremy, cleaning my pump parts, like I would try to explain it to him, and he just would not do it the way that I wanted.
Mm.
So I think that was where the challenge came from. But I mean, I really do think that Kalel just did not want to take the bottle.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. Which is, I think it goes. I wrestle. So there's times when I wonder, where am I on the need list? Because as ChatGPT was informing me and educating me about milk banks, typically they're for premature children in the NICU, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and you go, wow, that's cool. It's cool that there's an infrastructure built so that children in the NICU are supported even by anonymous mothers who decided to donate, which is, again, it's a beautiful thing. And you also think there's ways that moms who have healthy babies can purchase it, and then it still kind of stays into the infrastructure, into the system of, hey, you're helping this organization who's helping to provide this.
Yeah.
And then, but also, if there's difficulty breastfeeding, whether the uterus is in excessive pain because of the breastfeeding, then you could potentially see a doctor, and the doctor could give you a note, and the note could help you to be able to get support from milk bank. Again, all these things I just didn't know, and I go, oh, now I'm aware of as options.
Yeah, even like there's like breast milk test strips, so like you can even test the breast milk you get, like to see what
in case you're going on Craigslist and getting a random strangers.
Yeah, in case anybody out there is doing it. But there's different tests you can do to see, like, for breast milk also.
Yeah.
So because I know that like people have done it.
Yeah. ChatGPT was telling me that. It's such a weird statement, right? Telling me like it's a friend.
I was right now when you were saying it, I was like, oh, he's just out here texting with ChatGPT.
Often, and like, which makes me think, are we gonna be in a world where it's like you don't even need books anymore? Because when it's voice activated, you're just back and forth in a conversation. I was speaking Spanish to it the other day. We were just back and forth in Spanish. Its accent is not really good right now, but. What were we saying? ChatGPT, milk. You said something right.
You said we don't have to read books anymore.
Oh, yeah. Well, ChatGPT was telling me about milk and telling me about something else. I forget what. Milk banks. Oh, that the advantage to going to milk bank, it's already pre-screened. And if you do it informally with a friend, for example, and that's what I was actually asking. Oh, one of my friends offered, just said, hey, if y'all ever need, my wife is a super producer. And I was like, oh, like, again, these are like blessings to think about, like, and maybe, okay, here's what I'm gonna make an assumption. I'm gonna assume that there's blessings in my life that are not, everybody doesn't have that. Like, I don't know how many moms get that phone call and get offered breast milk from their friend.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna assume it's not a lot, especially as our world is more siloed and individualized now than ever, and we're less village oriented than ever before. But I think that's like crazy. Like, what, that you would even like offer that is crazy. So
it's kind of funny too, like thinking about it, like even making the offer. I feel like sometimes people are like, ew, it's so weird to think about. Like, but I think if you really start thinking about it, like cow's milk comes from a cow, and it's like not as weird. It shouldn't be as weird to think about like human milk coming from a human, like breast milk coming from a human.
Yeah.
But even then, like I don't know if I've even thought about it too. Like, I don't want to be offensive. Like, hey, if you need milk, I'll give it to you. And then people are like, ugh, nasty. I don't want your milk. Right. Like, I think about that too.
Right. To that point where I was like, when, again, a friend said it to me, I was like, how are you even like selfless enough to think of that? Like, that's why I said it on another pod that we had, which was friends of mine are kind of showing me new ways to love people that I didn't even know because they're loving me like that. And it's like, that's crazy. And another example of that is our church. A lot of times when somebody has surgery, or somebody has a baby, or somebody is in a situation they lost a child and they're like kind of distraught, the church will set up like it's called a meal train. You familiar with that?
No.
So there's different apps that do it, but ultimately you can schedule for different people to bring meals on certain. So like right now we're on they made a meal train for us. So like people bring meals to us on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Whether it's hey they sent over Chipotle, or they cooked something and brought it over baked good. Like again, it's a lot of food. Even if it's just 4 days a week, but you just think like again like crazy like blessing like who. And I just realized a lot of people don't get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it so the fact that I had a friend offer that, it does make you think like, oh, like not to say hey go offer Krish whatever, or Krish offer you whatever, but it's more of like when you see a friend offer a friend something and then you go, oh, I haven't offered whatever my niece that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, also. Yeah.
All right. Which question are you? Is it yours? Is it mine? I'm all lost.
I think it's yours.
What did you just ask?
I asked, has having Corzin brought you and Angelina closer?
Okay. Oh, what about you? Were you closer?
I don't, and I think that's where I was going with the whole like because I couldn't, not have Khalil with me all the time. I don't like a lot of times it was mainly just Jeremy like supporting Khalil. Like he didn't really help, lift up the Khalil. I do feel like it has gotten easier now. Like, and I think like it's taken Jeremy a lot longer to be able to actually have Khalil like all by himself and all those kinds of things. But yeah, so did I think it brought us closer? Not really. Like at the beginning, no, because I felt like I was doing a lot more, with Khalil because Jeremy couldn't do that much. But as time has gone on now, and especially now like that I've been pregnant, so if Khalil's almost a year and a half and I've already been pregnant 7 months, then really these last 7 months, Jeremy has been helping a lot more, been doing a lot more. I guess maybe like the first 6 months before Khalil could eat like real food, he wasn't as helpful. But now he has been a lot more helpful, and it's brought us closer because he does support me a lot because he knows that feeding Khalil has taken a lot, and now being pregnant and feeding Khalil has taken a lot.
Yeah.
So I think yeah.
No, that's fair. It's fair and real. Is there some moms, especially if they're waking up in the middle of the night because they're saying, hey, I'm breastfeeding. Hey, like husband, like you ain't got to wake up. Yes, does he need a diaper change as well as feeding? Could you technically get up and do the diaper change?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could get up, but like I'm already up anyway, so I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
So were you on one side of that, or some are like, no, actually, you spending the extra 5 minutes or less doing a diaper change actually does provide some relief to me. So do the diaper change, and then I'll feed. What perspective?
I don't even think I thought like that. I think it's because especially like when they're so little, you're able to just do both at the same time. Like immediately when your child starts crying, especially for me, I immediately want it to stop. Like as soon as he starts crying, I want him to stop crying. So like immediately I'm like, unbutton my shirt, get him feeding. And as soon as he's feeding, I'm so much more calm. Like I have to stay awake for him to finish eating anyways, and I could just, he was so little, like I could just hold him and then just change his little diaper at the same time, so it was like, it wasn't like an extra thing, and it wasn't like I don't want you to get up and I have to listen to him cry for 5 minutes while you change his diaper. But even like I think we had done it maybe where like I'll wake up, feed him, and if he's already awake, like he could change his diaper while he's there with me. But like it wasn't like, oh, try to make an effort to do that because because it'll give me relief. Really, it didn't make a difference. I was going to be there anyways.
What about baths?
Baths?
Yeah.
Oh, no. So for the first forever of Kalal's life, so I guess at least the first year before, like, I mean, now he can take a shower. Like, we can take him a bath, however. But for the first year, I always take a shower. Always took a bath with Kalal. So, especially when he was tiny, tiny. So, like, I tried to put him into that little bathtub thing, but I don't know. It just didn't make me super comfortable. So, as he got a little bit bigger, it was easier. But, like, when he was super small, I didn't feel comfortable putting him in the bath.
Yeah.
So, I would just get in the bath and hold him or feed him while I cleaned him. And the same thing. So, I did that for months and months and months. And even as he got older, you know, if he would get fussy in the bath, he would just eat. And then I would wash him while he's eating.
So that's another one of where, so Jeremy then so he didn't have any baths without you. Khalil didn't have any baths without you.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but after the bath, like once he was done taking a bath, Jeremy would come and get him out. So Jeremy, what we would normally do is I would take a shower, I'd take a bath first, and Jeremy would be watching him. And then if the baby got fussy, you know, like he was hungry, or if by the time I was done taking a shower, taking a bath, then I would be like, okay, like, then I would clean the bath, you know, after I took a shower, I would clean the bathtub and then be like, okay, I'm going to fill up the water with not as hot water and you can bring him to me. So that way he's on me and I'm clean. Then I clean the baby.
Did y'all use that fish?
The fish?
That's a random question.
What?
There's a fish you can put in the water that tells you the temperature.
No.
I don't know what's normal. Like, your own life is normal to you, and you're like I don't know. We use a fish. You put in the water to tell you what's a good temperature for the baby. And when it's 101, it's red and too hot. Once it gets to 199, it goes to green.
Oh.
So it pretty much helps you to know what's too hot and what's pretty much what's too hot. I don't know if I don't know if anybody's doing it what's too cold thing, but
I don't think there might be a too cold.
yeah.
You never know. But yeah, so
I think you were asking. I guess you were saying the way we've done it is something.
yeah, like it's
Teamwork. It's
teamwork.
Yeah.
Much more teamwork, much more. That's why I like I guess that's why I was curious to ask the question, like, are y'all really doing it more? And because I know y'all are doing more like teamwork, I wanted to know if that's brought y'all closer, you know? So it's like what's brought Jeremy and I closer is him having to support me a lot.
Yeah.
Not so much like him helping with the baby.
Well, yeah.
You know, so it's like, I don't know if that help with the baby is what brings things closer.
Yeah. You know, I also think about like I guess the spiritual element. I feel like if you think about the spiritual forces of evil that are, I would believe are always at work to try to divide you and hurt you and plant seeds of doubt and plant seeds of this or that. I think those are like always relevant. So my worldview is that's always relevant in anybody's life. And it's like, what are you doing to kind of circumvent those spiritual forces of evil from overtaking you and having whatever, like crazy thoughts? Because it's like they're again, you start just have real thoughts of like when you're sacrificing so much, like when you're sacrificing so much and you're sleep deprived and your sleep is interrupted and you're serving on an ongoing basis, it's maybe my personality type too, where it's like, I was joking about the patting myself on the back, is like, you know, if you think well of yourself, you're like, oh, like, man, like, you know, solid dad, whatever,
Yeah.
providing all these things. But just being mindful of like any toxic thoughts that aren't really helping the relationship. So it's not surprising to me if I were to hear of people having more. That's what people told me. Say, hey, you don't be surprised if you're having like massive challenges in your marriage during this time.
Yeah.
Which is why I thought it was funny that you would say it. Which I think for you it was more it was a naive thing. Which the friend who told me said, hey, like, don't be surprised if like you are in more conflict now than ever.
Yeah.
I was like, he wouldn't ask me something like that. You know what I'm saying? If he's seen enough new parents go through really difficult times, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, have y'all designated godparents or I suppose godparents adjacent, which would be guardians if something happened?
Mm-hmm. We have talked about it a lot. We haven't. It's so hard because I like to take time to observe different people's like parenting styles. So like, and I don't know if this is like a fair judgment, like to see how like their kids turned out. You know, so like if, and this is just for an example, I don't think I even know anybody like this, but let's say, you know somebody or like, you know somebody and all their kids are super selfish or all their kids are, super disrespectful or all their kids are, however. It's like you really, have to stop and think like, okay, is that parenting style something that I would be okay with?
Yeah.
Like, and raising my son or my sons, both of them now, so that's where like I have had the conversation with Jeremy before, right? Like about whatever. But we really have just agreed that our parents would probably just do that. But obviously, as long as we're young, because, everybody gets older every day. So we really haven't thought about it too much. So, like, obviously, like, my siblings are up in the air. All of them except one, is in the running.
Yeah.
To even just think about or consider. But I guess it's us wanting to take our time to really figure out, like, what we would want and, like, who we would trust and parenting styles we want to look at. And so, like, you just had a baby. So, really, I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
And on top of that, too, like, I don't know if that's something that even, like, let's say Jared or Jeanette would even want to consider. You know what I mean? Like, that's 2 whole kids. You know what I mean? Or, like, Diamond already doesn't have kids, and she might already be signed up to, have Salacia if something happened, to have Corzin if something happened to y'all. And it's like, okay, do I want to load her up with 2 more kids? It's like all those things also.
Right.
But,
Right.
So,
which is a question that we had when we asked Diamond and Alan to be guardians if something happened to us. Which I think you have to actually pick several sets of hey, something happens to them, then who? Like, I think legally it's like several sets, which I suppose we can look up at some point. But when we asked them, we Texas Roadhouse, and we asked them, and Alan said yes right away. I was like, hold on, like, respect, but like, really, this is one child that we have right now. We don't know, again, if we have another child or if she's pregnant again, she has triplets, then it's not a commitment of 1, it's a commitment of 4.
I do feel like they already have 6, so they're kind of like, the more the merrier. but I wouldn't want to say that, and then we are all leaving our kids, and then they have 10 kids.
Right. And then so we were trying to we were asking them and telling them to think about it, but then his rebuttal to my statement of like, hey, this is not asking for 1, we're asking for however many kids we have.
Yeah.
He said you could have 19. And which was like super, like, probably one of my favorite human moments of life for somebody. Like, his mindset was like, okay, there are moments when when your heart's revealed, when it's like it almost superseded his even need to talk to his wife, who's my sister, right next to him. And it's like, he said no, like, it could be 19 and we'd still say yes. And I was like, oh. And again, back to people teaching me how to love them. I think that's one of my favorite human moments. that people extended to us. So we're like, it's just crazy. But yeah, so
And with me, Christiana, and Shanice being the same age, to me, they're also people to consider, which is crazy to think about, right? Like
Yeah.
us, because we're so young. Like I've thought about it too. Like, is that something that I would ask? Is that something that they would even be okay with?
Yeah. And it has to be like there's an element of ego stroke of like, oh, like dang, like this is this feels really good.
Yeah.
You know.
I do know, like, before I went to go have Kalel, like, I sat down with mom, I sat down with Christiana, and I told them, like, hey, if something happens to me, make sure that Jeremy's okay, and, like, check on these things as far as, anything.
Wow.
For my son. Which is crazy, like, I guess that's why we're doing the whole podcast thing, because we want to make sure that things are recorded just in case.
So they know how much to spank your kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somewhere between pat and caned. But not too extreme either way.
Caned is hilarious. All right. Your question. Unless you have anything else on this one. On godparents.
It is tough to think about.
And then, because you have to pick, again, the several levels, does somebody feel slighted that they're like the third option? I feel like, again, any option is like an honor. If somebody would ask me, hey, you're not first, you're not second, not third, but it's whatever. But to be like considered at all is crazy.
Yeah.
It's a blessing, it's uplifting. But yeah.
Yeah. No further thoughts. That's crazy though.
All right. Your question.
My question, what has been the greatest challenge being a new dad? What has been a struggle? Something hard for you? Or like, not even just that, like challenge, like what have you done to push your own boundaries?
Good question. Push my own boundaries. I think I've tangentially mentioned sleep interrupted, but it's like, like, yeah, like we know, everybody knows sleep's interrupted. But pushing boundaries.
I feel like, did you sleep a whole lot before?
Your question has presuppositions inside of it. So tell me why you even asked the question like that. You assume
I don't
that
know.
I sleep a lot?
I just assumed, yeah, you didn't sleep a lot.
I think I definitely had have sleep issues, and sleep has been, I guess, generally easier to go to sleep because you're more tired. What were you saying else? The other one. Okay, so sleep, boundaries. This is one of those I think the fancy phrase is self-aggrandizing, which is the whole thing, pat on the back stuff. It's like,
yeah. Well, like, have you been able to leave the house much?
correct. That's certainly something. I think that, like, church, social things. Again, we're not doing softball right now. We're not doing.
Especially that too. Like, you're a social person. Like, how has it been? Like, has it been pushing the boundaries of like isolation?
I feel like in recent years I've asked myself about, am I social? Am I not?
Yeah.
Like, truly. Like, I think I've been a part of social cultures. Like, church is a social culture, and like, depending on your church, like, I think my church was extra social culture. Like, almost everything is built around social culture, except for your like personal devotion and personal prayer time. Everything else is like built around, friendship time. But I've wondered if pandemic changed me. I've wondered if that season shifted a lot, that I started like really liking not time that's not doing that. And maybe it's just like self-development stuff. Is like when I take like fitness serious, it's just a lot of alone time, you know? Like if
Yeah.
you're going on a run, like yeah, some people go up with running groups or running people, but if you typically if I'm going for a run, it's 99% of the time it's by myself. Exercising, it could be going to a gym, working out with somebody, or having somebody come over, or it could just be doing it by yourself. So for me, like weightlifting and all that is by myself. So pushing boundaries, the reason I mentioned self-aggrandizing is because in a culture where you're trying to convert people and you're willing to sacrifice anything and everything for them, any comfort, any amount of driving, any amount of sleep, any amount of whatever, money, like it was already this mindset of like sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that. So that was somewhat familiar. I'm trying to think of anything else.
Anything like, so I'm trying to think. Even just the question, even for myself. Like, if, so you know what's super funny for me? So, like, have you heard of people like potty training their kids like when they're 6 weeks old?
No, I've not.
You've not? You've not heard of like, so there's people who start to potty train their children super duper early. And so like they're able to like sign like T for toilet or whatever
Yeah.
super early, so you're able to do that. So it's like, I do know that some things that were like, especially for me, that were difficult or like boundary pushing was like, I want to do things to help my child develop and be like ahead, but at the same time I don't want to do things that like stunt them. Like I've read so many people like who have been able to do it, and then other people who are like, yeah, but then it makes the child scared of the toilet later on. So then, those kinds of things, it's like it pushes my boundaries as far as like, what I thought was originally the right course of action, originally how I wanted to raise my son, or even like, because even now, so like, especially now that Kalel eats regular food, I'm like, oh, I really just want him to be potty trained, right? So I'm already like potty training, but it's like, I feel sometimes like that I don't want to overdo it or like super stress him out, stress me out. And I've had people tell me like, oh, you think you're going to be able to do that, but once you have your kids, like it's too hard and you don't end up doing it. And I feel like, those things keeps me like, what do I really want to do? It pushes myself internally on what I'm willing to do and what I want to do. I guess it's like that pressure, social pressure.
Super ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think
like other people's input has made things, I guess it's like like that's what I'm saying. Like has been a challenge for me.
And I wonder if you face that more as a younger mom as opposed to us as older parents.
Yeah.
Like people are like, I don't know. I don't know. Or maybe, I don't know. It makes you think about how people's input changes based on how they perceive your age or your whatever. That's interesting. I think in any season, I think probably a theme in my life over the last 2 or 3 years has been like challenging existing thoughts around church and church culture, like in how I want my son to be raised, and like, do I want him raised like, hey, it's an every Sunday thing, every Wednesday thing, every Friday thing. So I think that I think my perspective is almost like I like hey, it's a fortress and it's a refuge place where you can be with people, and it's like the kind of relationships you want to, but I almost see stuff as like, I know I was raised almost I was raised spiritually, almost like a missionary, which I think that's a better phrase for people who like get it, or who maybe don't get it, but they understand a missionary. Like, where you're mission minded, you're like trying to convert people, you're trying to help people, and all these things. And so, like, I don't know if that's left me, although I try to like tame it down. Like in the back of my mind, I still want everybody I know to like be what I am, but it's like at what timetable. So like, do I want everybody on my softball team to be like what I am? Yeah. Like, are some of them clearly not what I am?
I like my brain did exactly what I think your brain did right now.
And I'm like, oh man, I really feel like I helped that guy. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You and I are thinking about the same person.
Yes.
You're like, that guy really needs Jesus. No. But it's like the timetable. Okay, so I'm thinking, how do I reach people? How am I teaching my son to reach people?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, hey, first day of practice, invite them all to church, which is, yeah, he said Alan Garza.
Alan Garza on our softball team. Someone that really needs Jesus. Alan Garza.
That's hilarious. So, but it's like,
Alan's our brother-in-law, by the way.
yeah, brother-in-law, Corzin's goddad.
Biggest heart ever.
Yeah. So, all of that to say, okay.
Yeah.
Is it show up first day of practice? Invite, hey, any of y'all want to come to church with me? And then like they're like, who the heck is this or whatever? Or
Yeah.
is it like, hey, stay on the team for a year, and like get to know people, try to be uplifting or whatever. And then, hey, people talk about different needs or whatever. It's like, hey, like if you need, eventually say, hey,
if you need Jesus.
if they're looking for any support, like, hey, I mentor guys. I try to help people with their journey of faith and their journey of changing their life if they're looking for that kind of help. Like that first day of practice announcement versus, hey, like, oh, actually, no legitimate needs that people have expressed they want to change certain areas of their life. They've already expressed that. So I already know. They've said it to everybody or whatever. So, okay, take all of that, your question about boundaries. Now, my son helping people, like, there's this idea, okay, so if I looked at church attendance from a year standpoint, let's say it's somebody who's like, again, more like I was raised spiritually, and they're, let's say, twice a week. There's 104 services, right? Now, could that time have been used in a more missionary-oriented fashion? As in, like, instead of that Wednesday, like going to be with Christians again, maybe it's being with some non-Christians, spending time there, building relationships, and then so that when you actually invite somebody into studying the scriptures or to church, that actually comes from a friend, not from a stranger.
Yeah.
So anyway, all that to say is son has a game, or son's thinking about joining a league. They have their games on Sunday mornings, pushing that boundary, right? Now, I've already been there as far as like going, okay, yeah, I think I'm good with him. If I still, again, I probably not as intense as you are. Like, and one question I have that it's for later, but I'll drop a little seed about what it is. It's called client-centered therapy. And it's this idea in therapy where you kind of allow the client to lead and dictate like where it goes. You believe the client has the answer, so you're trying to ask questions to help them to get to the answers themselves.
Yeah.
And like, my opinion on culture is like we've almost taken that to the very, very extreme where we think like, oh, like I know sometimes you'll say, well, whatever the kid wants.
Yeah.
And that triggers me because I'm like, well, I know people often want stupid things.
Yeah.
So anyway, all I'd say is bringing it back to raising my family, hopefully with a mission-minded heart, saying, all right, son, like, I'm good with you doing this. Now, our family, like, until you move out, like, hey, we're going to be mission-minded. So one thing we want to do as we go is we want to represent Jesus. It doesn't mean, hey, everybody, I'm a Christian, but it's like, hey, go be encouraging because Jesus calls us to be encouraging.
Yeah.
Go help people, and if somebody's down on themselves, hey, you be the person to go give them a pat on the back and give them a high five. Say, hey, you're gonna be all right. Like, so
Yes.
that's to me, like, hey, you're going to be Jesus on the mission field as opposed to going again to church. You're gonna have 103 meetings already this year.
Yeah.
So I heard one person say, like, I wish people that went to church wouldn't come back until they brought somebody who was actually sinful and lost with them, as opposed to doing the same. What's the other word for routine? Ritual. Oh, you just want to come back and do the ritual again. Like, why you keep doing the same ritual and you don't actually go live it? Like, so
Yeah.
so anyway, long answer to your question. It's pushing back on the ritual of doing church again when maybe you go live out a different verse or different scripture to be a missionary for Jesus instead of doing some of the same things over and over again. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that makes sense. I completely understand like the whole bringing somebody back who actually needs some Jesus in their life. But it's, like I've said in the past, like it's so hard for somebody to go into, I think, that kind of culture and not feel judged. So that's just automatically where my brain goes, just in general. So like I think that the whole establishing a relationship, a friendship, knowing somebody personally and then inviting them to go do those things with you is is important, so that somebody doesn't feel super like outsider ish. Yeah.
But you know what's interesting too, like our culture has moved so far away from shame that like I've seen like threads or like almost a comeback of like bring back shame, and that actually resonates with me because it's like, hold on, like, so let's take a situation that we're very, very clear about judging. So somebody murders somebody, like we judge defined as saying you look at something and you could tell if it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
We all would go, I mean, let's say in most situations you go, hey, wrong. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're fine judging for murder. Okay, we are fine judging on murder. Okay, let's keep on going down the line. Adultery, cheating on your spouse. Most people are gonna go, oh yeah, we're cool judging that.
Yeah.
But it's like, where do you draw the line? Because
I don't know. I feel like even for murder or adultery, there's so many people who have like, and I guess that's why you're saying this whole like let's bring back shame, because there's so many people who are like, oh, but why did they do that? What led up to these events? And then you find yourself getting like feeling sympathy for these murderers and adulterers.
But all that to say is the people who say don't judge, they also judge. They just happen to draw the lines on different places. It's ironically, a lot of them draw the lines on judgment. Okay, you can't judge. Oh, you just judge. You judged me about not judging. So, okay, we all believe in it. We just believe in drawing the lines in different places.
Yeah.
So, like, the idea of, like, to think about a social culture that has expectations for you, we actually live in a culture that has expectations, but maybe you want lower expectations. That's okay. But, like, if we're going to take a sample of high performers, like their culture they put themselves in and surround themselves with are people who are stretched them to be excellent and to be best. And if somebody says, hey, I don't want that, okay, you still have agency to choose you not wanting that. But I think I happen to be on the train of bring back shame.
Yes, I definitely can see that. Judger.
But and again, and I stand on that. Now, like saying like somebody has to do things as somebody, if I'm saying, hey, Jesus is on the throne, like, so I'm opening myself up to somebody saying, hey, like, you said that I did that. It doesn't seem like Jesus is on the throne. Like every now and then I'll see her friend say, oh, like, I'm still married because of the kids. Okay, so my pushback would be, so Jesus isn't on the throne. Like, us being parents is on the throne. That's what's actually keeping us together. If there were no kids, we wouldn't be married. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm still married because Jesus is on the throne. Now, if I do something stupid, like, and if somebody like commits adultery, they took Jesus off the throne. They put their own desires on the throne. Or they put the desires of the other adulterer on the throne. So all that to say is like, is I think we all judge. It's a matter of where you draw the lines of judgment. And I think if somebody wants to change, they're better off in putting themselves in a situation where there are higher standards.
Yeah.
And inside the Christian culture, it is a culture, even in the good book, it's like there's a verse that says, are you not to judge those inside the church? Like we're not going to judge those outside. So like, let's not do that. But are we not going to hold each other to standards of like Jesus being on the throne? Like, yeah. So that's why, like, when I'll ask people questions about, oh, like, do you consider yourself Christian, or, you know, or do you want Jesus Lord or whatever, that helps to orient, okay, are you looking for support for that? Let's say somebody who's a strayed Christian or whatever, then different conversations. But if somebody says, hey, like, no, like, I'm not, okay, cool, then you don't have the same standards as that. So now, if you want to talk philosophically about something being wrong or right, we can.
Philosophically?
Yeah, in other words, if you and I, let's say both you and I say, hey, like we identify as Christians. Okay, cool. So you're saying you want Jesus on the throne. Okay, cool. So then if your language is out of line, I call you and say, hey, like,
Yeah.
I think you've put yourself, the kind of language you want to use, as opposed to the language Jesus wants you
Yeah.
to use. But if you're saying, okay, like, let's talk philosophically without saying, hey, this scripture says this, let's talk about,
Yeah.
is it actually a net benefit? And then so now you've taken out the scriptures from a point of common reference of, hey, we
Yeah.
both agree to this. Okay, take that out. Let's talk about abortion in and of itself. Not talking about, hey, the Ten Commandments says do not murder or do
Yeah.
not kill. Let's talk about if internally it agrees, if you agree with it, like on principle, like we kind of like speak about the ethics of it, the morality of it. That's philosophically.
Okay.
Which I think there's a lot of common ground. Like the reason we can reason about something that's good is because there's something good that has been established long before us. I can go deeper if you want me to.
Let's not go deeper.
Let's go deeper. No.
No, yeah. So I think thinking about it, I think it's you're right, like everybody does judge, people are judgmental, whatever, XYZ reasons. But I don't even think that that's exactly it either. I do think that people inside the church, especially if that's like what they believe in, you should hold them to that like standard. It's the same thing like if you're going to join a sport, you have to follow the sport's rules.
For sure.
You know, like and if you're not, people are going to look at you like, you know, like if you're playing basketball and you're fouling all the time, they're like, hey, you're not supposed to do that, you know. But I find it hard, like, I guess, to think, like, especially, like, with, like, new people. I don't know. Maybe it's hard to think about, too. Like, people who are just giving it a chance or just trying to figure out what's going on inside of, like, the church or a different church, any church, or even just starting off, like, reading the Bible and stuff like that. I think it's hard for anybody new starting out to automatically be trying to hold themselves to this high standard when they are gonna make mistakes. And it's not like, you know, like you said, everybody makes mistakes, everybody does the wrong thing, but to feel like you're gonna be called out every single time you're gonna make a mistake, I think it's hard to think about.
Yeah, and if you're drawing like the Venn diagram circles, it's like, all right, high standards, yes. Also, like gracious patience, gentleness, yes, as well. It's not like, okay, I can only, I don't even know what that sound was, you know?
I think it was my extra phone over
Oh,
here.
okay.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Something was powering down.
Something is. There we go.
So we go like, okay, I can only be gentle, patient, and considerate if I don't have any standards. I'm like, oh wait,
No.
what? Or if I have standards, I have to be harsh and condescending and arrogant and rude. So actually, why don't you put these two? Where do these things overlap? Where you have high standards, and you're gracious when people make their mistakes.
Yeah.
So every single mistake doesn't have to be addressed, but it is a source of, if you see somebody making a mistake that's hurting their life, and then you don't say anything, like that's something as well. Like, is that the caring thing to do? Again, this is the extreme example. You see somebody's kid
obviously
running into the street, you don't say anything. Oh, hey, I don't want to judge. Like that it's a what make the judgment, scream and yell at the kid to get out of the street.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's I think there's a and both.
Yeah. But I guess, where I get it, okay, like you go and you bring somebody to the church and they're obviously in need of Jesus. They show up intoxicated, not wearing a shirt, all of these things, all of these extreme crazy bad things. Do you immediately start telling them like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that in here?
No, I think that errs on the side of like patience. Like it's like
that's what and I think that's where like my brain goes, and it's like, okay, you're distracting all of us. We cannot worship Jesus because of you. Like,
Which,
I think.
Again, I haven't seen that done in my circles, and I haven't done that.
And there's like, lower levels of this, like, wearing an inappropriate top that, it's a little low cut, or, what, doing those kinds, or saying something kind of rude. I don't know. I think there's levels to it. I'm saying extreme comes in rolling up intoxicated.
Right.
One
of the guys I interviewed, that he's actually a pastor now, he said that's what he was doing with his wife. He would, before he was even, he would go to church with his wife, but he would go drunk. And then again, the idea that he could change his life, and then I did ask him to be a pastor there. I was like, what? Like, dang, this is like the redemption of Jesus.
Yeah.
But
it's like when you think about those people, I automatically like start to think like, oh, they're gonna feel super judged if people automatically start saying like, hey, you can't do this here, you can't do that here.
Right. And I think that's where, if you're in a culture where it's like, who's one thing I would ask people is, hey, who do you know here? Like, let's say I meet somebody for the first time, who do you know here? And that helps me to know like who's kind of supporting, mentoring, or guiding them. I don't gotta be the guy, like we don't have to be the behavior police with everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, hopefully there's somebody who's like mentoring and guiding you that will give you that information with time, that you don't have to get it. I mean, just imagine, okay, so a girl comes in with a low cut top. Is she getting 25 conversations? Like, that seems too extreme, where every modest woman goes over to her and lets her know.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean nobody talked to her about it ever?
Yeah.
Also, that seems off. But like,
if all the men go and talk to her, is this even a good church?
But like, but it's kind of funny where people will get online and talk about like, oh, like this church judged somebody for like wearing something. I'm like, again, I find myself going, bring back the shame. Like, no, so nobody,
good.
Nobody could say anything to you. Now, again, like, let's have the conversation. Like, who said it? How long they were around you when they said it? Did they have a relationship with you? There's a proverb in the Bible that says, wounds from a friend can be trusted.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It means when it comes to hard truths shared, it's better if it comes from a friend. Wounds from a friend can be trusted. If somebody who's a friend of me cares about me, is there for me, they say something hard to me, it's like, yeah, easy to process, easy to digest. So it should be like a standard we use of you cannot and you should not challenge somebody beyond the relationship, with some exception.
Yeah. It's like those people who stand on the corner with the stop abortion signs and they yell at all the girls or people.
Yeah. So I've never heard of that being like a radically helpful, but it seems to like make them feel somehow righteous to do that. But I don't think that helps anybody. So.
Yep.
All right, we're at 142. You have your appointment. All right, your closing story.
Closing story. So, story for our children. Story for my sons. So, once upon a time. Okay. There's three people involved three beings involved in the story. It's a grandpa, grandson, and a donkey. They're walking through a town, and the grandpa lets the grandson ride on top of the donkey, and they're riding through the town. And everybody starts saying, "Oh, that young man, like, he's letting his grandpa walk. Why is he doing that? He's so selfish. He shouldn't, the grandpa's tired. He should be the one on the donkey." So then they decide to switch. So the young grandson gets off the donkey. The grandpa gets up on the donkey. They're walking through town, and they're saying, "That grandpa, so selfish, making the poor kid walk," and all getting all these judgments as well. So then they both decided to both get up on top of the donkey. So now they're both on top of the donkey walking through the town, and everybody's thinking, "Oh my gosh, they abuse that donkey. They make him carry both of them through the town. They don't, how dare they? They're so inconsiderate." So they eventually just end up doing whatever they want, right? That's the end of that story. But moral of the story is, no matter what you do, what you don't do is always going to end up getting judged as well. So whether you
judged. Good tie-in.
Yes, judged as well. So you're, they were not able to win in either way. Everybody there's constantly going to be some kind of turmoil with every decision that you make. I'm not going to say every single decision. I'm not going to blanket statement that. But, there's going to be a lot of times when you're making a decision and then you change your stance based off of what other people are saying. And then there's still going to be turmoil in the decisions that you make. So ultimately, the moral of the story is do whatever you want to do.
Nice. I will also, instead of doing my own story, which I'll save a story next time, and we could still plan to each our own story. I actually riff on the one you just used. I think I'm gonna teach off of it. And maybe I add one more situation, which would be they both walked in without riding the donkey, and they were criticized also for being so dumb. Like, why don't one of them ride on the donkey that they have? And so like they're criticized of all four scenarios. So what I'd say is, make a decision about what criticism you're comfortable with, because if people are gonna criticize you any way, shape, or form, making a decision about what criticism you're going to live and die with. Like, again, sometimes you have to choose between, hey, do I do the hard thing or the nice thing with somebody? Examples maybe if maybe teachers had to decide between expelling a student or giving them another chance, and you're walking that line. There's a lot of situations you're going to be in life where there's criticism on both sides. And then if hey, I made this decision because I was trying to be kind, or I made this decision because I was trying to help them understand excellence, those two are absolutely justifiable. So whatever you do, I think it's have the intentionality to understand the criticism that comes with it. You're going to be okay with, because you understand your values and you made a decision in accord with your values. And sometimes you could be in a similar situation and choose one side, and you could choose another side, and you could have the experience on both sides to kind of help you to navigate life as you move forward. But with that said, we'll wrap up the episode, and we'll see everybody on the next one.